And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I love to read, and I want my kids to read, and so whenever I go to use book sales, get books for the kids, one of the favorite books I like to read is the Arthur series. Arthur the Weasel, or whatever he is. The Aardvark, I guess. Arthur books. And now a game has come out. Arthur Saves the Planet, one step at a time. Now, just so you know, regardless of where you stand on the environmental issues, this is certainly a game that's in favor of them, a very green game, if you will, and it can come across as a little preachy, I suppose. But either way, Arthur Saves the Planet one step at a time. It's a kid's game about collecting resources and saving the planet, using resources to stop problems throughout the game. Real quick reaction on the game itself before I show a little bit of it to you is that I think the idea of the game is good. I think the execution works well, but I think there are some serious problems in the card deck that are going to either require fixes or just frustration. And it almost, in fact, ruins the game to some degree. But let me show you the game first. So here we have the board. This is Arthur's Town, and players will draw cards that show them basically what character, if I get Muffy, I put this in front of myself, and okay, I know that I'm the Muffy character, and most of the main characters from the Arthur series are in the game. You then take a character with a stand, and by the way, these are horrible stands, terrible to get these characters into, and you put them at their starting location. Each character starts at a certain spot on the board. Now, each player also gets a handful of cards. Many of these cards are a card that show a character, but more importantly, show a color resource. For example, this is a white card, while Buster here is a yellow card, and then Brain here is a black card. So these are different resources. There's also other special cards, a few that are double resources or bonus cards, such as this. And players get 6 of these cards to start the game off with. The rest of them are shuffled in a deck next to the board, and then 4 of them are placed face up. On a player's turn, they have a few options what they can do. Either they can move 3 spaces, and there's little roads here on the board, and you just follow those roads. 1, 2, 3. Or you can draw cards. You can either draw 1 of the face-up cards or 2 cards from the pile that's face down. When you draw a card, usually you add it to your hand. However, if you draw one of these time passes cards, then if you see over here, there's this time track here, and it will move this up 1, and when it gets to the top, the game is over. Other cards have you put more challenges on the board. You start with a certain amount of challenges on the board. This is your typical challenge. It shows an environmental problem. Here we waste energy when we do not turn off the lights. And it shows the resources needed for that problem. This one is yellow, red, and black. And the points given if you solve that problem. So players are trying to collect resources to solve the different problems. They then go to the problems and they can solve it on their turn instead of instead of taking cards, they can move, go to a challenge. Let's say Buster here moves to this challenge. He plays a yellow, red, and black card. The challenge is complete. He takes the challenge, and then he gets 4 points. Now, there are tokens here that give points out. There are acorns that give out that are worth 1 point. There are saplings that are worth 5. And then there are full-blown trees that are worth 10. And you simply take the combination of the tile that you get. I'm actually not sure why that's necessary. I don't know why you can't just take the tile and note that it's worth 4 points, except for the fact that there are some bonus cards in the game. For example, this one here says, resolve challenge at Arthur's house for double points. So if you have this card and you play it when you're doing the Arthur's house challenge, you would get double the points instead of just the amount of points printed on the tile. Although you still could keep the card and put the tile on it. Because you're never going to go through the deck again, because eventually you're going to go through enough of these time cards that you're going to move it all the way to the top. And so the game continues until one thing happens. Either the time track goes to the top or you run out of challenges. The second one is not going to happen ever in the history of the game. And I'll tell you why. The idea of getting resources and collecting cards that are used to then resolve these challenges is a good one. But herein lies the problem in the game. There are 3 colors which are considered common: red, white, and blue. Each of these has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards in the game for that color. Red, white, and blue. Then there are rare colors, green, black, and yellow. There are 5 of those cards in the game. There are a few, I think there are, 5 cards that have double. So there's a couple extra of each color. And then there are 3 cards which let you change one color to another color. All well and good. The problem is there are 11 red and 11 white. If we add in the extra stuff, there's about 14 red, 14 white possible when going through the deck. There is also 14 blue possible. But when we look at the dots on these challenges, there is only 7 blue dots scattered throughout the challenges, while there is 24 red dots and 23 white dots. So blue is prevalent throughout the deck, and yet when it comes to solving challenges, there's too many. There's 14 different blues throughout this deck, and yet I'm only going to ever need 7 of them. In fact, you need 7 blacks, and there's only 5 black cards in the deck. But black isn't the problem. It's red, white, and blue. Blue is a problem because when blue cards show up, the Francine cards show up, the face-up cards, no one wants them. They don't need them. They're hardly ever used on the board. And I guess they're annoying, just like she is in the books. But the white and red cards are even worse because this challenge here is a yellow, black, and green challenge worth 6 points. That's wonderful. That is the only challenge in the game that does not need 1 white and 1 red. Every single other challenge needs white and red, and some of them, many of them, need 2 whites or 2 reds, or in this instance, 2 of each. So if you don't get any whites, which is a very distinct possibility, you cannot complete any challenges. Now, there's a rule that's not in the rule book, but I contacted the designer that says at the end of your turn you can discard as many cards as you want and draw again. And so hopefully you can get white or red. But I have seen games, I've played games where a kid got maybe 1 white the whole game, which lets them complete 1 challenge. Unless, of course, they are the lucky one to get this single yellow, black, and green challenge. Other people get lots of blue cards, and there's a few places they can use those. But if you don't get white or you don't get red, you're in trouble. While the guy who gets white and red, he can go finish anything he wants. This is a kid's game. You play a kid's game with someone who never gets any white, they can never complete any challenges, and you're going to have a crying kid on your hand. And for me, that's a real problem with the game. In fact, the first time I played the game, I finally cheated and threw a white card to my daughter when she wasn't looking because the whole game we played, she never got a white and she could not complete any challenge. This was the only challenge, and another kid got the yellow, black, and green challenge when she wasn't looking. And so, I don't know. To me, that's just a serious color distribution. Now, what I might be able to do is I might be able to change some of these blue cards and say that they're also white and red cards. To me, that would make the game a little better. The game is even more, the game comes with the set of regular rules, but there's also a set of kid rules where basically you don't use any of these special cards, the double cards or the other special cards that let you do interesting things. That move around the board and such. But then you're even a more problem because there's even less of the white and reds at that point in time. And this game just does not work. So I'm sure that this is fixable. I'm sure that you can color some of the dots on the challenges, get rid of some of the whites and reds, make the blues wild. I'm sure there's some kind of fix. But for now, I mean, while the game is exciting, and if everyone gets a nice spread of white and red cards, it will go well. But if everyone does not get the same amount of cards and get the same, if you're missing white or red, you're out of the game. And I suppose an adult can just suck it up and go on, but for kids, that's kind of devastating, and that's not the kind of game I want to play with them. A nice theme, a good idea, but just doesn't work out in the long run.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.